Welcome to Ask Jackie Gordon, the public speaking answer lady, who seems a little disorganized now because her camera's looking, she's looking like I should be over there and the camera's over here. And my God, it's my fifth show. It's the fifth time I'm doing this live stream where you can ask me anything you want about public speaking, engaging your audience, finding your niche, anything you want. But as we've learned over the past this is 4 shows, is I have to have a theme. I got to have something going on. And what I did today was come up with a theme that we were going to talk about how to craft and learn your presentation. So whether or not you are crafting a speech or you're crafting a social media post or a blog post or a video script or a podcast script, whatever you're doing, I would talk about how I do that in the context of writing a speech or more of a script. I guess it's more of a speech is what I'm going to talk about today, because that's sort of my area of expertise, is speaking live in front of an audience. And at the same time, you can speak live, or not really live, like a live stream, like I'm doing right now, or you could be speaking from a video, talking to your audience. But I'm going to talk about kind of the basics of how to learn craft and learn a presentation when you're actually speaking live in front of an audience, which is kind of the most scary thing for people, the people who have glossophobia. I love that word. It sounds so glamorous. It's like I'm afraid of glossiness, but I'm not. So the other thing that happens on this show is that while I'm presenting on whatever subject I'm presenting, the seat is driving me crazy today, you can ask me anything in the chat. Anything in the chat. I'm going to bring up my little captions here so I can keep track of what's going on. I'm going to delete that one because that one's from last week and I should have deleted it anyway. But the weirdest thing happened to me today while I was getting ready for the show. I got up to go put on my Vendetta lipstick, which is by Pat McGrath, and my foot fell asleep. I mean, it fell asleep to the point where I could not walk. I tried to get up and walk, and it was like, I felt a little like, what's that, Igor with the hump, except I was sort of more like dragging my leg, and I almost fell over because, it's really hard to walk with just one leg. So I suggest that people practice getting up, move. When you're sitting in front of a computer all day, you've got to get up and move. So that is my tip. That's a little story tip for you today. Now, the other thing I did, which was I had another today I learned moment when I tried to create the slideshow for this demonstration, for this live stream in Keynote, because I had the problems with Adobe Express, which today I figured out when I went onto Adobe Express and was like, why did I have this problem? Why couldn't I download my slideshow? A lot of people had the same problem as me, so I felt vindicated but also annoyed because it's supposed to work and you're paying for this subscription and you expect it to work. So not all the software works. So today I said, I'm gonna beat this. Hey, hi Paula. Today I'm gonna beat the system by creating. Guess we have. Can you hear the comments from the peanut gallery? Which is, I don't have my headphones on. Normally I do. I'm gonna put some headphones on now because I can't hear anything, or I can. I don't want you to hear that sound of Madam. The sound of Madam shredding. Madam is my cat, shredding a cardboard box in the background. So we need her to settle down. Where's my water spray bottle? So as I was saying, I wasn't going to get caught in the Adobe Express problem. So I said, I'm going to go back to Keynote today. I'm going to make my slideshow in Keynote. So I went along and I was like, cool. I can bring in this background. Everything's cool. And then I tried cutting and pasting text, and it all came up as little question marks. No matter what I did, I tried bringing it into a text editor and, reformatting and making it plain text. It just kept coming in as little question marks. So that was kind of fun. It was not fun. So today I decided, so I ran back to Adobe Express and realized that I'd made a mistake last time, because that's, the way it is when you're doing these things on the seat of your pants. And I decided to create the slideshow in Adobe Express Woo. Hold on. I'm looking at from first page. Ooh, but now I can't see here. That was weird. And then I would see if I could actually bring it up while I'm talking to you. Oh, you know what the problem? Well, I know what the problem is with that. I just realized what the problem was with there's a fault in my stars. Oh, now I've totally lost what I was doing with you guys. I cannot see you anymore. And now she's going to yell. Oh, delightful. Okay. I can't leave because I can't even see you. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, here we go. Here I am. No, I'm not back, but I'm going to do something about that yelling in the background. Oh, there we are. Okay, that didn't work. I had a brilliant idea and I worked on the slideshow again and it didn't work. Yay! So that's no good. And I've got to get rid of this cap. So hold on one moment while I get rid of the child. The fur kid has got to go. Get out. No, she's not even locked in here. Get out. That's how we work it. I don't usually let the cats down here while I'm doing this, and now we never will again because that's very disruptive. Yes, Madam is just validating. Exactly. Madam's just here trying to help. She's like, here's where the things could go wrong for you. So does anyone have any questions about public speaking? You can just drop them in the chat because I cannot talk to you live here in the show unless you want to come on and have me talk about your do some coaching live. And if you want to do that, you can certainly reach out to me. Any of the places you're seeing me, I'm on Twitter. Excuse me, not Twitter, Twix. I'm on X. I'm also on Facebook. My normal Facebook, my personal Facebook. I think you can find me on the YouTube today. So we're streaming to 4 different platforms. So you can reach out to me there if you're interested in coming on and having me coach you live. Here. But in the meantime, I'm going to try and figure out how to do this because it's not going to work the way that I thought. One more time. I don't know what. Maybe I have like selective memory or something. So I just like, I could do that. And I'm like, yes. And I spent all this time making another slide presentation that I can't show. I can show, but I can't show it the way that I wanted to. And that is superiorly annoying. Anyway, but the cool thing about, and it's not that cool. No, it's not cool at all. The thing about doing it the way that I'm doing it is practicing doing improvisational speaking, which is actually a skill that you have to learn as a speaker or anyone who's going to be interviewed or even in a conversation. Everything we do when we have conversations in front of each other is improvisational speaking. So I'm really trekking it out with this flying by the seat of my pants style of live streaming. So today I'm going to see if I can split this screen and bring one screen over here. Ooh. What is a way to keep the voice consistent when delivering a presentation to an audience? What do you mean by consistent voice? Do you mean like monotone and talking in a one voice without changing it? Or do you mean, I'm not sure what you mean by consistent voice. Consistent voice. Explain. Send me a text. Send me an explanation. So an audience. I'm trying to move this along so I can get it not moved. I'm moving my screen. You cannot see that I'm moving my screen, but I am to try and get this other screen up here so I can see what I crafted, even though I can't use it. I can't use it in the way that I wanted to. So Paula, can you go? Oh, there it is. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting question because Paula and I were speaking yesterday. Thank you. Paula's a friend and we were talking yesterday and authentic voice. There's a cattail. Now I'm real. There's a cat she's coming over. She wants to put her cat tail right in the camera for you folks. Mama, go away. Get out. Go away. No one wants you. So, authentic. So So there's an idea that when you're speaking, that there's your public speaking voice, and then there's your real voice. And I don't believe that there actually should be different. you should show up online or show up. Oh, this is a little crooked. It's making me a little crazy. You should show up. Oh, here she comes again. Oh, here she comes again. Sit down, then, Mama. Sit, then sit. If you're going to have to be here, you have to sit down. She's like, I must be here and you must pet me. Now you have to do 2 tricks at once. You must think, speak, and make sense and deal with the cat. Yes, Mama for the cameo. You try and pick her up. She's not going to have no cameo. So your authentic voice. Some people think they have to have a public speaking voice, a public speaking persona. And I don't really believe in that myself. I think that you should show up online as who you are. I don't know, but I'm guessing, maybe if somebody had a really terrible personality, like, I talk like this in my normal life, and they wanted to clean it up for being online, I suppose they would want to go do some media training and be able to have a smoother, more appealing voice. But when I talk about public speaking, I say be yourself, because it's really hard to be somebody else. So you want to develop your skills and your brand in line with who you are, because otherwise, people suffer from imposter syndrome left and right when they've been successful, when they know what they're talking about. And then if you're trying to show up online as someone other than yourself or this other persona, that's going to make it even trickier. It's going to be harder. I would think it would make it harder. So I wouldn't suggest that you do that. You're going to have your beliefs and your values and your shtick or whatever the way that you are. I'm myself. I may be a little bit keyed up, because I'm on the internet. I wasn't sitting here in my house talking like this to the cat before I got on, but I'm basically myself, and I bring, my sassiness, and I bring my personality. I bring all the bits, warts and all. You see, I'm not doing a live stream that's super polished. I like it looks okay, although I'm not centered again. I seem to keep moving from the center of my background, but I'm a warts and all. I'm a be yourself kind of person. So I don't actually, because that way, it's very funny. Back in the olden days of the internet, I had a friend that I met on Twitter when it was called Twitter, and he was hilariously funny on Twitter. He was sassy and catty, and also really good at what he did, which was cooking. But when you met him in real life, he was shy. And I used to produce events for bloggers. I used to do it at different events. I had a Chinese New Year potluck where bloggers would come from all over the city, and they'd cook Chinese food, and we'd bring it and feast. And then that changed to Pie Party Potluck Live, where all 100 bloggers would bring pies, and we'd all gather and eat pie, which doesn't that sound like the best thing you ever did? Because it is. And I'd go to blogger events like the Big Summer Potluck, or I'd speak at Eat Right Retreat, or I was the keynote speaker for the Kosher Food Bloggers Conference, as you would expect it would be me. And I would meet people that I'd met who I'd see their personality on the internet, and then I would see them in real life, and they were very different. And I just thought it was weird. To me, it was strange. It's like, you should be who you are. Everyone else is taken. Isn't that the statement? You should be yourself. Be yourself. Be authentic. I don't like the word authentic. But because, I don't think you have a choice. You should be yourself. Be yourself. I don't like it when you talk about it in context of food. They're like, no, it's not my thing. Authenticity, it just seems like a jargony word. However, be yourself, show up as yourself. It's so much more stress, I would imagine, to try and be someone else, especially when you've got the stress of trying to engage an audience where you're trying to get a message across because you want them to do something, like buy something from you or be influenced by you in some way, then to top it off with like, I've got to be this other person to be in front of an audience. It seems like way more work. I think it is very important to hone your speaking skills, especially if you're presenting on video or you're presenting live. You want to work on any kind of tics that you have. You want to make sure that you're crafting your message in a way that gets your message across and gets your audience to take the actions that you want them to take. So that's important. You want to deal with any foibles you have in terms of your nervousness, perhaps, where you might be, is that cat yelling again? Where you might be, clutching the podium if you're speaking at a podium, or moving around in a weird way, because when people are nervous, they sometimes they rock, sometimes they sway, sometimes they clutch their hands, those sort of things. You might want to work on those things. You definitely want to work on using vocal variety when you talk, so that people are interested and keep their attention. There's all sorts of ways to be a more entertaining speaker, so that your audience doesn't fall asleep when you're talking to them, that I do encourage people to work on. But the brand voice is you, perhaps, depending upon your audience. Now, as I'm going to go back and say something that contradicts that, and that is, maybe you're speaking professionally for your office, and you can't just be yourself. You have to be in line with some sort of, the values of your office, or, you must present, you're a lawyer. You can't, come out in a tutu. And so you have to speak to your audience in the way that they expect you to speak to them. You have to show up for them in order for them to feel safe, in order for them to feel comfortable, in order for them to trust you, in order to build your authority. There are certain lines where you have to show up as the person they expect. When I was training to be a coach, they talked about the fishalope. It's like a cross between a fish and an antelope. But the fishalopes expect that they want to learn from other fishalopes. So you've got to show up as the fishalope they're expecting. So that's another point. Did that answer your question, Paula? Are you out there, Paula? If anybody's out there and wants to just wave and say hi, I'm taking questions, and I'm taking waves, and I'm taking hugs. I'm taking virtual hugs today as well. So let me see if I can possibly, I realize now that maybe I can. Let me just see something. Oh, I see, I can't. I wonder if I can duplicate this window. That's a good question, right? Can I have this screen copy? We're learning as we go along, folks. Oh, good. I'm glad that was a good answer. I'm just wondering if I can show up in two places on my own computer. I doubt it's going to work. Yeah, it's not. It's asking me to join this myself in another context. So that ain't going to work, kids. It's not going to work. Not going to work. So I have a plan, and I might, oops. Oh, and that's my keynote that didn't work. I had a plan, and let me just see which mode I can pull in my screen. And the cat is at my feet, girl. She is like, I am coming for you. Okay, so what is that? I don't want that. I should have tested this out before I got on here. I don't know what that is. I did this the other day, so I'm just going to see if I can figure out how to split the screen. And I did work. It did, Billy, when I was doing a presentation the other day, it did work. But I'm just trying to see what I have to do to bring in screen share. There we go. And window. I can pick a window, any window. Okay, here we go. Folks, here we go. Okay, we got a window. Ta-da. Now, I think you can see this presentation that's on my screen. And I wonder if I hit present. No, it still takes over my entire screen, and I can't see nothing. So if I pull up this thing in the way that it's supposed to be, let me close that. If I pull up this thing this way to 100%, that was way too big. I can see nothing again. That's kind of interesting. What am I going to do? What am I doing? I'm working this out as the plane is in the air. So now if I see somebody, I'm just wondering, hold on, I'm going to close something over here. And I don't see the chat anymore. Oh, look, someone's chatting to me and saying something. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to see if I can bring this up and make it not look like this. I can't hit present. So when I hit present, I lose everything. And I hit exit full screen, and it does not work. That's interesting. I cannot even get out of there. All right. These are experiments that I'm trying in real time. So let's go back to this. This presentation is going to look like the other one. And one day, children, I'm going to actually figure this out, how to get this presentation to show up properly. So I'm going to quickly go through this presentation that I called Crafting and Learning Your Presentation. And the idea was that we want people to make really good content that will engage their audience. Right? That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So I'm going to set this up so I can see what I'm doing. And if you have any questions while I'm doing this, oh no, I think I'm pulling something over my other screen. I will just pop them in the chat and hopefully I will see them. I do see the chat, so I've got everything under control, I believe. So crafting and learning your presentation. So what we're going to talk about in this presentation is, I'm going to see if I can move these things. Can you see the slides? I think you can, even though it looks really weird. And you can see what the next slide is, but pretend you can't because we're doing a little make-believe here. So I'm going to talk about how I craft my presentations, and then I'm going to show you a basic speech outline, and then I'm going to go over a lot of practicing and learning methods. I may not get to all of them because there's a lot. So that's why on my thing it said, I'm going to see what I can squeeze in. So the first thing that I ask myself, the first thing that you should ask yourself, the first thing that you should think of before you say anything, create anything, create a social media post, create a blog post, create a workshop, is why are you talking? This is my favorite question. It's because I often am sitting in an audience going, why are you talking? Why are you talking? Oh, you can see the slides. Thanks, Paula. And that's, you need to know what you want from your audience before you speak to them, what you want them to get, what you want to get. So I start with what I call the 3 whats, the 3 whats. What do you want as a speaker? So speakers come down to wanting 1 or 2 things. I've tried looking at it for a third thing, but I haven't been able to find a third thing. They either want sales or they want influence. And usually even the influence that they want is related to some sort of gain, usually financial gain. You could, even people who are like gazillionaires want more money. Elon Musk, I'm talking about you. But so it usually comes down to sales or influence, and those are usually attached to work. I mean, money, because even if you want influence as a leader, you want to be seen as a leader in your job, it still is related to how you get paid and how much money you get paid. So I haven't found anything but sales or influence, but if you have another thing that people get up and speak for, let me know and I'll add it. But I've even thought, people standing on a soapbox in Times Square, they want influence. A dictator, he wants influence. He wants people to follow him, even if it's not for real. So you want something as a speaker. Then you think about the second what, which is what's in it for your audience. What do you want them to get from your presentation, your workshop, your speech, whatever thing you're formatting for them? There's something that you want them to walk away with. And then the last what's is, what do you want them to do once they hear you speak? People call it a call to action. What's the thing you want them to do? What's this next step? And you want them to have that for themselves. And I add in a second one. What do you want them to do for you? Oftentimes people are presenting. Sometimes they're getting paid. Often they're not. A lot of people put out stuff on the internet. They're putting out their videos. They got their TikToks, their shorts, their longs, their sideways, the social media posts, and they're just giving away information for free because they're told that if you're generous, then you're going to find people who are going to be interested in what you want. You're going to build an audience, and from that audience, eventually, you're going to get people who will buy a product that you create for them. But in the meantime, even if you don't have a product, you still want them to do something. So if you want to build your audience, when you are done presenting what you want to present, you've got to say, hey, subscribe. You see people do it on YouTube videos, or come to my channel, or sign up for my mailing list, or if you're doing it live, connect with me and shake my hand and we'll have hugs and whatever you're going to do. So there's something that you want them to do for themselves, that you want for them, and then you want something for you. My method is to I usually start like I'm going to use a speech as an example because it's just easier for me to talk about because it's where I have most of my expertise and where this since I'm talking about people who are speaking live or even even in a video, you could if you want to substitute the word speech for script, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. So I usually if I'm going to be presenting live in front of an audience, I like to start 2 weeks before because I do not like feeling rushed. I like to look like I know what I'm doing. I like to look tight. I don't want to leave anything to chance. This is a premeditated speech. This is something where I know why I'm speaking. I know what the action is I want everybody to take. I know what I want for myself. So I need time in order to craft because it just, for me, it takes a long time. Now there's improvisational speaking, which is what I'm doing right now. See how I'm doing it right now, where it's not tight. It's not premeditated, but I still want, I want something for myself. I want to start, I'm learning this platform and learning how to stream. So that's what I want. And I'm, ideally I'm going to use some of this content to build an audience, but I also want something for you as the audience. I want you to learn how to craft a presentation and how to practice listening. So I know what I want, but I'm doing it off the cuff because I'm practicing that. That's what I want for myself too. I want to be able to just get up here and start talking and not have it be so tight because this is more of a conversation. Oops, and not a presentation where I'm presenting to you. So I like to start with an outline and I write out the entire speech. And then I put little notes in the brackets like pause because I'm really bad at it. I'm really bad at it. So I do that. And I also plot the emotions. So I don't think I've talked about this much. Maybe I've hinted on it in this on the live stream in the last 4, but one of the things that's really important in terms of engaging your audience is knowing how you want to make them feel. So when I write a speech, when I from the first thing I say to the last thing I say, there is an emotional component that I want the audience to feel. And I plot that emotional component so I make sure that I'm taking them on sort of if the emotions were crafted like a what's those things called? A graph, that I would be with all of the emotions on one side. I should actually put this in the slides. That would have been good. All of the emotions from say joy down to fury as a line, I'm going to plot what emotion I want them to feel. So I might open funny. I want them to feel amused. And then I might get really serious and make them sad because I want to move them around because it's like a speech for me is like going on a ride. It should be like a ride for them. So I'm going to take them on that ride and I'm going to plot out how I want them to feel. Now, the thing is, they're not always going to feel how I want them to feel, but I have to be deliberate with my intention on how they feel. If they don't feel that way, sometimes I've said something that I thought was heartbreakingly sad and they've laughed, which was not my intention. So you can't always control this. That is why you write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. So say you give a speech and you've plotted out this journey and you've outlined it and you've got all the perfect words and everything you love about it and you think it's really powerful, and then you give it to people and it doesn't land. It doesn't land the way you want. Maybe you don't get the results you want. Oh, look, Madam has come back to be in the way of the camera. She is just being a bit of a little ham today. Look at me. Look at me. I'm a perfect kitty. Anyway, so rewrite. So rewrite. I do a lot of rewriting, whether it's before I give the speech for the first time, after I've given a speech and I realize, oh, that didn't work out. When you practice your speech, I often find that I've written in tongue twisters that I trip on every time I speak, every time I say that sentence. I'm like, every time you say the sentence, it doesn't come out right. So I want to rewrite that because we're not trying to make a challenge for ourselves. We want this to be a smooth and easy ride when we're presenting. So that's what you want to get. So I'm going to go over what a basic speech outline looks like. But the most important part of that goes back to what you want the audience to walk away with, which is what I call the pearl. The whole outline of the speech is to deliver this one piece of information that's going to help them solve their problems in some way. Whether you're doing a full-on massive workshop, or you're giving a 5 to 7 minute speech, or you're giving a keynote, there is only one thing that you should be building your entire presentation around, and that's the thing you want them to walk away with. What's the takeaway? What's in it for them? There's lots of ways to talk about this thing, but people's attention spans are that long. So you want to have the thing that you want them to walk away with so perfectly presented that it's like, you're like, here, I'm going to put the pebble in your hand, kind of like Kwai Chang in Kung Fu. And with that, I'm dating myself. For all of you, for you children out there, Kung Fu was a television show back in the land before time. But anyway, so you put the pearl, you want them to walk away with this pearl. And this is what a basic speech outline looks like. You have your title. The opportunity with your title is to, I'm going to go through it. So you have your title, you have your introduction, you have your opening, you have your greeting, you have the body of the speech, you have the transition statements, and then you have your key points, and then you have ways to support your key points, and then you have the takeaway, problem, solution, and then you have the pearl of wisdom that's reiterated again, and then you have a call to action, and you close. That was really fast, but I'm going to go through each point. And I'm going to, don't start crying. No, go away, out. Sorry, I had to throw a little towel at her because she's just being a pain. So your title is what your speech, what the audience sees from your speech before you even begin. I talk a lot, and I haven't talked about it here, but I talk a lot about having titles that titillate so that your audience gets an experience of what's going to happen. It's still an opportunity for emotion. And it's certainly an opportunity for grabbing their attention. So you want to write a really good title. You don't want to just be like My Speech by Jackie Gordon. Then you also have to craft your introduction, which is what the person who's introducing you, if you have such a person, is going to say, or it could be the description that's in your video. So you're going to craft that yourself unless you have a team. But you want to, even if someone else is writing an introduction for you, you really want to have eyes on it, especially if they're going to introduce you to a big stage, a big room full of people. You want to see what they wrote. You want to make sure, and when you're doing a speech, you want to make sure that that's written into or agreed with the people that are presenting you, that they don't get to say anything about you that you haven't read and approved, because people can say some whack stuff. So you don't want to have them say something and you're waiting in the wings to be introduced and you're like, what did they say? So make sure you know what they're going to say. Now, your opening is super important because that's your 3 to 7 to 10 seconds, 3, 7, 10 seconds that you get to grab their attention. So you want to do something or say something that's going to make them go, what is going to happen? What's this person? What are they going to say? You want to have them kind of like riveted from the beginning. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And maybe in next week's show, I will go over how to open, because I have a whole huge list and examples of how to open, because that's a good idea. So we'll talk more about opening, but you want to grab their attention. After you grab their attention, you need to greet them and, thank them for being there. So usually you break for a second from the person that's delivering the speech to say, welcome everyone to my blah, 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 blah. You're going to play that by ear. And also this basic outline is basic. That means it's just an example. It may not be appropriate for what you're doing, but you can chop and change and do it however you need to do. And then you have the body of the speech. Why should this? You're going to tell them why they should be listening to you. You're going to introduce the meat on the sandwich. And that could be presenting a problem. It's really good if that thing that you're telling them comes in the form of a story so that they can get a little picture in their mind about what you're saying. And then you start using either more storytelling, or you can use facts, or you can use quotes, or you can use data to prop up and go deeper into whatever the problem is that you're going to be solving, or whatever the meat on the sandwich is for your the message that you're delivering to your audience. You could have another key point that also is propped up by stories or facts or quotes or data or whatever you need. It could be, a demonstration. It can be anything. It just has to be engaging, and it has to be valuable, and it has to be in line with the message that you're giving to your audience. Then you kind of wrap it up with how you solve the problem, or a lesson, or a takeaway. Then the thing that's that pearl that you want them to take away. The kind of like, you tell them these stories, and then you're like, Papa, I've solved this problem for you. And then you reiterate it again, and then you tell them what you want them to do. The other, you want to take an action. You want them, what are you going to do to take the next steps? This is what I need you. This is what you should do. This is what I think you should do. This is what is going to help you take this to the next level, because they've already had this aha moment where you've told them what the pearl is, and you're like, so what do we do now? You have to tell them, as the leader, as the speaker, what should I do? I'm going to take a break for 2 seconds and say, does anybody have any questions from the audience about anything I've already said? Nope. Okay. I keep remembering that I feel like I'm just sitting here talking to myself, but I'm talking to you. So you have your call to action, and then you have a close, which is as important as your open in a way, because you want them to remember you. You want to say something in the end that makes them go, makes them not so much curious because you've held their attention for all this time, but you want to be like, you can reincorporate the beginning. You can, just say something that's not going to be like, bye-bye, folks. That's all, folks. You don't want to do that. You want to say something that's valuable in the end. So now we're going to go over, I think I have a weird thing in this slide, so bear with me, because obviously it's not up here, but there may be a black slide that I forgot to edit and to delete. So don't hold it against me, okay? So the next thing so I talked about outlining. Outlining is a great way to be able to practice your speech, because it breaks it down into bits. It breaks it down into sections. And a lot of people, the really good speakers, can just take that outline and put it on their stage. They don't need all their words. They've got this outline, could be on a card or index cards, and they can just work from the outline. But the outline is a great way for you to break your speech up, your presentation up, so you know the sections, because it's easier to remember the sections than all of the detail within the speech. So I start with an outline, but I like to, as the way that I work, I like to memorize the entire speech. And I know there's people out there who are like, you shouldn't memorize your speech. It should sound like it's natural. But I sound natural working from a memorized speech, because most of the speeches I've written have been timed. And so when you're working on a timed speech that has to take place in a specific time frame, you can't afford to have a lot of fluff. I have fluff now because, what time is it? What time is it? It usually tells me. I've been talking for 38 minutes. Wow, it's a long time. But I have time, because this is an hour-long show and I can have room for fluff. But when you're actually giving a presentation, it's usually at a conference, or perhaps it's on a show, on a video. You have to get in and out, especially if you're doing stuff for like shorts, or you're doing reels. I mean, those things are 60 seconds. I know some of them are longer, and I don't understand why, but the ideal ones can be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. This is the kind of content you're using for marketing, to drive people to your landing page or your website in order to bring them into your orbit and get them into your emails, get them in on your mailing list. So that stuff is short. So I like to have things very tightly written, because I want to make sure I get the words are perfect. I pick the best words, and then I go in and I'm like in and out, and it's done. So depending upon the nature of your presentation is how you can either write it or not write it. So chunking it down is a great way to remember. This is all about now remembering. So when you actually group things, when you group numbers, like if this number is what, I don't even know what number it is. It's 989542104. But if it were a telephone number, that's confusing. But if it were a telephone number, 989-542-1064, we're going to be able to remember it, because that has a rhythm. It's presented in a way that we actually remember, because we all, well, not all of us, well, we do have we still have phone numbers, even if we don't have to remember them anymore. But that's chunking it helps you to remember. So if you were going to the grocery store, you could say bread, pasta, tuna. You know what the grocery parts of your grocery, you know what the dairy parts of your grocery are, you know what your veggies are. And actually, this is how I write my shopping list. So I'm giving you a little secret. I always break it down, also because it's easier to shop in sections. So you want to break it up into chunks. Another trick for that they, you know, who they are, the people in the they universe who tell us what we must do. The experts say that a great way to learn your presentation and to be able to memorize it or keep it, you know, with you, is to write it out by hand. Now, this doesn't work for me because my handwriting's so bad, but maybe it still works even if you got bad handwriting. No one has to read it. It's just the actual action of writing helps to connect it to your brain. So can't be a bad thing. I don't write things by hand. I tend to memorize what they look like on paper, and I can see my speeches in my mind, and that works for me. So you can do my way, or you can sit there and write it out by hand. It does help it get in. Another way, I'm just checking the time because I don't want to run over, Red Rover, is this is what I do, when I'm needing to memorize a script, I read it aloud. I read it aloud. I read it aloud. I read it aloud. I mean, that 2 weeks lead time that I use to craft a presentation is a lot of times it's me memorizing. It's me reading it aloud. It's me talking through it. It's, you know, and then the other thing I do when I read it aloud is I actually break it into, I have this outline, right? So I'm like, read this part, reiterate this part, read it, you know, and sometimes I'm reading it aloud, and then I'll be like, can you remember what you said? So reading it aloud and repeating it and repeating it. You have to do it over and over. Some people say, oh, how long do you have to memorize? How long do you have to learn something in order to memorize it? It's really subjective. It really depends upon you and how your brain works. I tend to have to do it a lot, but I've done shows where I've memorized 16 pages, small type of scripts. You know, it's possible to do it that way, but the way I do it is to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And there's that black slide that I didn't want. I'm going to go to, oh, look, I skipped it. Another way that helps you practice and learn your lines or learn your script or learn your speech is to stand up and walk while you are learning it. Something about it may have something to do with the same thing with the writing. The movement while you're reading helps get it into your, you know, brain. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but it helps. There's some sort of mental thing that goes on that makes it easier for you to remember things when you are standing up and moving and reading simultaneously. So you might look a little strange, but I mean, you can do this in your house, folks. You don't have to do it in the street, but I've done it in the street, walking around the neighborhood, reading my speech, minding my business. That's another thing that you can do. Oh, this one is, what was that television show? Phone a Friend. Phone a Friend. What was that television show? I can't remember the name of the show. If anybody remembers the name of the show, you can put it in the chat, where you were like, oh, was that one where you had to answer questions and you had the opportunity to phone a friend? It works to learn your presentation by giving it to a friend and having them run lines with you. That's what we do in the theater, darling. Someone helps you run lines. And the same thing is true if you're working on a presentation or you're working on a workshop or even a video. I mean, videos are easier to do because you can film yourself, but if you're working on something where you have to present in front of a live audience, phone a friend and ask them to help you, kind of quiz you or listen to you, and they can help you when you drop a line, or, you know, see if, you know, how it lands with them. So they hold on to the script and you do it, and then they tell you where you missed your bits and that you're doing amazing. You're amazing. Pick a good friend, though. Don't pick a mean friend. This is what they do also in the theater, is they have live reads. So you could practice in front of a live audience. One way to do this is to join a Toastmasters group or organize a group of friends who, I did this when I was working on my chocolate show, Cabaret, and I organized for my mother's writing group to hear me deliver my lines. So that was cool. So that worked out well. So if you have somewhere where you can gather with your friends and they can help you do your workshop or work on your speech by giving a live read. This is what's also great about this is that you can see them, whether you're at a Toastmasters group or in front of people that know you, you can read their faces. And that's a great skill for public speaking, is that you need to see how your material is landing with your audience by looking at them. And that is a power move, because you'll see if they're starting to nod off and drift away. You don't want that to happen. You want them to be riveted. And you can tell by their body language and their eyes and whether or not they're looking at their phone, or whether or not your words and your delivery is landing. And you can ask them, if you're doing a live read, say you're an expert on monkeys, but you're talking to a group of pharmacists because those are your friends, you can ask them, pretend that you're monkey experts while I deliver this. And then what would the questions you have for me as a monkey expert? So you want to put them into the act with you. So that's another way of doing this. A cool way of practicing is pretending that you're actually teaching. Teaching is a great way to frame your content, because essentially a speech, a workshop is certainly teaching. So if you put yourself in a more of a professor-student vibe, then it might help you actually learn it. And you could even pepper the audience with questions for you so that you can practice, in addition to learning your speech, learning what your presentation is, you can practice improvisational question answering. So that's a great way to really embody your speech. And the thing that I want to remind you about your presentation is that pearl, that most important thing, is the thing that you must know. So that if you forget everything that you've written, if you completely dry and go blank, you remember what it is that you want them to walk away with, and then you can answer questions related to that, even if the whole thing falls apart. When there have been times when I've gone on stage and, well, not that I dry completely, but I might forget a chunk. I'll go and present, and then I'll go home, I'll finish, and then I'll be sitting somewhere and I'll be like, oh crap, I left out an entire section of my presentation. Now, the cool thing is nobody knows that but you. So you don't have to be like, hey, you guys, I left the whole thing out. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is just be like, I'm going to remember that next time. Don't beat yourself up for forgetting, but it happens. However, if you know your subject, if you know that the most important thing, what you want them to walk away with, you know that pearl like the back of your hand, even if you forget everything else, you can still present around that. Now, this was a cute idea. I don't know if anybody gets it. Look at that. I didn't center the mind map. This is a cute idea. I don't know if anybody gets Seth Godin's newsletter. He has a newsletter that comes out, I think he writes every day. It's short. But this week he was talking about mind maps and taking, if you take an entire presentation of yours, and there's apps that you can use where you put all the words in, and then you can see what words you use a lot, what words what are the biggest, most, because I think it goes by the amount of times you use the words. It would have been good if I had a picture of that here, but I will when I put the slideshow up on my YouTube. So you can take your presentation and put it into a mind map, and it will break it up into words that look like images-ish, and then you'll be able to see it. And maybe for some people who are visual learners, they could actually get the information that way. So make it into a mind map and see what happens. Another way to help you learn and help you practice is color coding the outline. So instead of just having the basic speech outline, it'll look a little more like this. So you see things in different colors, and it's actually a way to train your brain, because if you're a visual person, we all learn differently. Some of us are kinetic learners, some are auditory learners, some of us are visual learners. Some people need to read and write things in order to learn them. But for visual learners, it can be helpful to break your speech into sections and put them in colors like I did here. So the opening's in green, the greetings in purple, body, whatever, you get the picture. So that's another way to do that. And that relates to this next section, which is all about using pictures. So if you really are a visual person, it may be easier for you to see your speech in images as opposed to words. I have never tried this. I do think that, and normally when I make a slideshow for a workshop, I use more images than I've used in this one. I just use big words because I was in a hurry. I love icons. I like icons because they paint a picture really quickly. So you could use icons to make a little cartoon, storyboard your entire speech so that for you it flows better in your mind. So if you're a visual person and pictures are the way to get it done, I would suggest that you perhaps break your speech. This is going to take time, but now we have this AI that paints pictures for us. So you could just be like, hey, AI, here's my speech. Chuck it into one of these picture making things that I find make terrible pictures, but it could work for this exercise since you're only using it for yourself. Doesn't matter if the people have 4 arms and 54 fingers. You can get a visual of your speech, so that could work. This is one of my specialties, is to sing it. One way that you can learn to memorize something is to take the words and just sing them. That's one way to actually learn and practice your speech. I use singing as a way to help my audience learn. So I will take little bits, and also to break up the presentation. So when you're talking about presenting, especially a very long program, perhaps like one of my shows that could run like an hour and 15 minutes long, no one wants to listen to me, even though you guys have to listen to me there. But I got this weird slideshow. You want to break it up. So that's why I keep breaking and saying, oh, I'd like to, who wants a question, who has a question for me? Or if this were a live audience, I might have some exercise that I want you to do. But I also use singing in my presentation to break up just the sound of my voice. So the example that I used was, I have a show called Say Cheese, a tongue-titillating tasting of artisanal cheeses, wines, and the songs they inspire. And I teach people using music to how to taste cheeses and wines together. So it goes exactly like this. Smell the cheese, but bear in mind, the scent is not the taste. Take a bite and chew, but please don't spit. Cheese is a terrible thing to waste. And it goes on, but I'm not going to sing the whole thing because I'm actually running out of time. I'm running out of time. So singing, if you were going to learn to sing, this is my to-do list. It would go like this. This is my to-do list. Pick a show theme. Make the open and close for your videos. Pick clips. Clean up your face online. Change your content on LinkedIn. Make it funnier and more engaging. So when I say sing, you don't have to actually sing. You could sing it to a specific tune, or you can just sing the words, because singing it helps you embody it. It's another thing that's like science. So I don't know why it works, but it does. In addition to, I think I talked about this more when I was saying standing, you can move your body. Some people could dance around while they're learning their material, do some body language. It's really cool if you're learning something that's a speech that you really do need to use body language. So moving your body the way that goes with the speech helps you to learn it. It also helps you to remember that when you're presenting, moving your body, moving from one part of the speaking area to another part of the speaking area, demonstrating that you're running when you're running, and skipping and jumping and whatever you've got to do to punch the speech in places are what you should do when you're learning the speech as well, because it'll help you not only retain the speech, but it'll help you work on your body language when you're giving the speech. So move that body, baby. Next, record it. Now, this could be just an audio recording, so you could just record the sound of your voice, or what a cool thing to do. I think someone's just come in the house. Shh. I'm going to go off in a minute because we're getting to the end of our time, but I want to get to the last couple of things. Is use voice to text. This is an excellent way of figuring out whether what you're saying is clear. What I have found myself when I have recorded myself using voice to text is which has gotten quite good, is that I say the word cause instead of because. Not that it's a huge problem, but I didn't know I did it until I did it by recording myself with voice to text. So that the on your computer, I guess on your phone, you could say your speech and see whether or not you're enunciating your words, how you're pronouncing any weird things you do, like using cause instead of because. You'll find these things out, and it's also going to help you learn your speech. The other way is to videotape yourself. Videotape yourself, give your speech in front of your camera, set up a tripod, sit in front of your computer, whatever you have, and do your speech and videotape it, look back at it. Did you like it? How does it land with you? You could videotape it and send it to somebody else, see how it lands with them. You know, there's the boon of having this, I don't even have my phone down here, but you know, our little personal devices open up a whole world that helps us learn how to practice and master our public speaking. Quiz yourself. I wrote quiz yourself. So you could get a bunch of questions. It's kind of like pretending that you're the audience that you're teaching to. Questions related to, you could actually even ask the AI to write questions related to your topic and then answer them, recording yourself, and see how well you do while you're answering. So that's another great way to really drive in your subject and make sure that you are speaking eloquently and clearly and, you know, making sense when you are answering your audience's questions. This is a cool way. Mnemonics. So that's a weird word, isn't it? Mnemonics. So mnemonics are words that you use. Oh, great tips to improve your presentation. Thank you, Paula. The singing to warm up your voice is another great way. And it, you know, I know what I love. I love the haka. When I'm ready to go on stage, I think I actually encourage people to, you know, do a power move. But I love the way those Maori football players are like, you know, that gives you like this. It works your tongue and your energy level, and you're just like, and you're ready to like kick butt and get on stage and move your audience and be generous to them. And you're just like, I'm ready. I'm here for you. So singing's great. You could do a haka. You know, you want to get yourself in shape for presenting, and make sure. I also very much encourage tongue twisters and stretching your voice out. You know, there's the one that I used to do: red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. In Australia, they say red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry. She sells seashells by the seashore. Those are great exercises to also warm up your voice before you are going to present. But back to mnemonics. So there's the famous mnemonics for learning the planets. My very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas, which represents the planets. So you sort of get that idea. You take the first letter and you make a thingy out of it. I have also, So anyway, I'm going to end there very abruptly because it's almost time. I want to know if anybody has any questions about what I've presented on so far. I know there's other slides that I'm not going to get to them today. I'm not gonna. I want to end on time, and I've got like 30 seconds or 40 seconds. So does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to know anything more about how to learn and practice? There are other ways. There's acronyms and photos, but I think I sort of mixed that up in a weird way. So I see that there's actually a mistake down the line. So just forget it for now. And I will thank you for being here once again and hoping that you guys have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go cook some shrimps, and I'm going to make a strawberry salad and be glad that I got the 5th show in the bag, and hopefully one day I'll get my channel cleaned up on YouTube and you'll be able to watch these over there and they'll be finished. Actually, I might just pick this up next week, but I had that other thing I talked about that I'm going to do next week. I forgot what that was. Oh, how to open. I think we're going to talk about how to open. That's a good one. So we'll see, unless somebody wants to come on and be live coached, because I would love to hear from you if you do. Thank you for being here. Have a great night. Good night. And I'm going to figure out. Thanks, Paula. Bye.